almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race.
Mic check.
Had
It's muted though.
Yeah.
Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting
So you might have to use these, right?
quite the work order.
Just plug it out and plug it back in.
You've seen almost exponentially more. seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back after a week-long break with the Caribbean Touring Car Championship. These are our newly updated cars. Yes, they may look the same or similar to the ones you remember from our previous series, but they have been updated. But before we get into all of that, it's been a week. We thank you for coming back and joining us once again. My name is Chad Dillon, and we are live from Brands Hatch in the UK. That being said, this is our UK tour for the Caribbean Touring Cars, so expect a lot of British tracks coming your way for the next 4 weeks of this particular series, every Friday from here until the start of June. That being said, back to the cars. They have been updated. Yes, they look the same. They have, however, been given a new, well, updated physics, and now these cars are a little bit more fun to drive. They certainly have a different feel to them, having tested them in the practice race in our off week. I can tell you that the physics has changed something substantial, and that should lend itself to some brilliant racing action. That being said, we can turn our attention to the drivers. Alex Jarrett sitting at the top of the timing sheet on a 132.8. Kurt Moss just behind, about a tenth and a half on a 133.0. Roger Robinson just behind him, another 2/10 on a 133.2. But we can't pay too much attention to the times at the moment. These drivers are notorious for sandbagging, so certainly by the time we get to race time, this order could have shifted a little bit. But it's good to see some of the big hitters back in the pack. The likes of Kurt Moss has been making very infrequent appearances, as has Alex Jarrett, and we see the German rocket Tim Stahl down there in P8 once again. Don't watch that time. You never know what's gonna happen when we get to race time. And Oswin Wilson, another infrequent participant, but back in action here once again. So this will be a race to watch with so many heavy hitters. I'm sure we will see lots of close, hard-fought racing here this evening. Thank you once again for joining us. If you are joining us on the Sportsmax app or on our YouTube at JSRA 876, thank you for tuning in. And if you do enjoy the action provided to you here, from series to series, race day to race day, certainly check out our social medias at JSRA Official on Instagram, the Jamaica Simulation Racing on Facebook, and on TikTok at JSRA Official. That's where you can keep abreast of all things happening in our little virtual racing world that we are trying to expand, as we see Alex Jarrett there mowing a bit of lawn on his way to completing this lap, which will be, of course, invalid, having exited all four wheels across the white line. Definitely not gonna be able to get a valid time there. However, he does sit at the top of the timing sheets, as we mentioned before, so I don't think that will impact him too much. And again, this is the practice session. We are about 8 minutes out from qualifying. No, we're a couple of minutes out from qualifying. My apologies, the time is not on screen as it normally would be, but certainly the qualifying session coming at you in a couple of minutes, and that will be when we need to scrutinize these times as best we can. My guess is we're gonna get into the mid 132s by the time qualifying concludes. The likes of Jaden Harrison down there, that's certainly not his true pace, nor is that the true pace of Tim Stahl. So certainly we can look for those drivers to move their way up towards the front of the pack, but this is always a man to watch. The ever swift Mr. Massive Kurt Moss. So we are about to move from the practice session into the qualifying session. So as the drivers now round out their final flying laps, Kurt Moss still looking for a bit of improvement to challenge at the top there. He is finding it and maybe just trying to dial it in on this last lap here. You know, a bit of one-shot quali action there for Kurt Moss as he is rounding the final few corners there. He is now through the second to last corner on the blast down to the last corner, which is a very long sweeping corner. You have to get tight on the apex there early as you dare on the power. On the exit, does Kurt Moss find some improvement here? I am not sure it will be enough to upset Alex Jarrett, and he lost some time there in the final sector. So drivers just trying their best to get the maximum out of it, maybe perfect their craft just before we head into qualifying. We have 9 drivers coming your way and qualifying to come in just a few minutes. So as we head between sessions, stick with us as we take a moment, and then we will be back with you momentarily.
You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order.
And we are back with you once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is the qualifying session, and Tim Stahl, the first driver to start his flying lap. Let's see what the German will give us here, having not set a representative time in qualifying. I'm sure just, you know, holding back on that pace to dazzle us in the qualifying sessions as he always does. Let's see what's on the table for Mr. Stahl here this evening. Drivers to watch in this session, of course, the likes of Jaden Harrison, Oswin Wilson, Kurt Moss, and Alex Jarrett. We could see a very close battle this evening for the top spot, so let's stick with it and see what we get, as most drivers are about at least through the first sector on their flying lap, so these times will be coming at us fast and furious for the first set of flyers here. And a very tidy lap for Stahl, having not looked that way through most of the practice session, putting it together very nicely here, as I expected him to in the qualifying realm. Tim Stahl, the king of the sandbaggers, but a little bit wide there, and that is gonna invalidate this lap almost immediately. Coming just behind him is Oswin Wilson, and Wilson will now be the first driver to set a representative time, as Stahl has invalidated that lap. Let's see what Wilson does here. I am not sure he is among the sandbag crew, so so let's see what we get from Oswin Wilson. A 1:33.1, so already the pace looking quick, as Roger Robinson to the top of the timing sheets, swiftly unseated by Kurt Moss. I told you these laps were going to be coming fast and furious. Jaden Harrison slots in just behind Roger Robinson. I'm not going to be able to keep up here. Eric Ferreira now coming through the last corner and is going to head to the line. What is his time going to be? Also invalidated somewhere, it seems. So first set of flyers almost done. I think the next driver to cross the line will be Eastman, but also not valid, as we see Ferreira there running a little wide. So all of these drivers from Eastman down to Ferreira and Jarrett will have to go again, but Jarrett's still sitting in the pits at the moment, maybe waiting to see what his rivals are doing before he heads back out there to dazzle us with his pace as well. Johnny Wilson on a 39.7. I'm sure that pace will come down as we move through this quali session, but but Mr. Massive with a lap, and I did say we were going to get to the mid 132s. Now I'm wondering if maybe that was an understated prediction for what may happen here in this qualifying session. Kurt Massa 132.5, and that is the time to beat at the moment. The likes of Harrison about 3/10 back, Roger Robinson just about 500ths ahead of Jaden Harrison, so not much in it between those two drivers. Certainly those gaps are very, very marginal, and we will see how these drivers shape up as we move through the rest of this quali session. Now, all eyes on the drivers a little bit further down the order, the likes of Brady, who hates when I bring him up on stream. But Brady currently heading through Sector 2, as I think he is now going to cross into Sector 3. Sector 3, a very quick sector of the track. So let's see if Joshua Brady can string it together ever so nicely. And if there's ever a mistake at this point, you're going to hear how wicked I am, because it will definitely be my fault. But let us see what Mr. Brady can do here now to give us a time, put a time on the board, and see where he stacks up to the drivers at the top of the sheet. Just the final corner here for Joshua Brady, and he will be heading towards the line just about now. He'll be crossing right there. And what is that time, Joshua Brady? A 35.9. So certainly some time to be found there for Brady to get on pace with his ever-present rival Kimani Eastman, who sits on a 135.1. These two drivers just about a second and a half adrift of the top of the pack. So let's see if they can bring those times down to look closer to their rivals up ahead. That's actually 2.5 seconds. My apologies to the likes of Moss. It's 2 seconds adrift of Oswin Wilson in 4th place. Those drivers certainly have some time to be found out there on track if they want to challenge any further up the order. But right now, all eyes are on the top 4 to see if they can get this battle any closer before the end of the qualifying session. Jaden Harrison currently trying to improve on his best time. Needs to find 3 and some change tenths to get to the top of the timing sheet, but only needs 500ths to offset his closest rival, Roger Robinson. Not on a great lap at the moment, a couple of tenths down in sector 1 and in sector 2, so certainly gonna need to go again and see where he is losing that time. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, Kurt Moss is sitting quite comfortably at the top of the timing sheets. Tim Stahl, I was about to say, to this point has not made me eat my words the way I have expected in the past, but as I say that and tune in to his lap, currently looking very, very racy around the circuit, running a little bit wide there. I think Tim is pushing this car as hard as it can go, trying to get the maximum out of this track. Has he managed to keep it clean here now in the final sector? The first 2 sectors look pretty good to put him on pace to challenge at the top of the timing sheet. What's it gonna be across the line for Stahl here? Did he invalidate again? It seems he invalidated again in that final sector. That final sector proving troublesome for Mr. Stahl here this evening, seeming to run wide somewhere between turn number, I think that's turn 7 and turn 8. So, and he has gone back to the pits to figure it out once again. Meanwhile, Jaden Harrison here heading through sector 3, just crossed over into sector 3. Improvement in the first sector, quite a bit down in the second sector, so this might not be the lap for Jaden Harrison to find that gap to the drivers ahead. And Moss is back on track, looking to improve even further, so let's see if there is still improvement out there for some of these drivers. We predicted a mid 132, it's looking that way right now, but still there's a bit of time left in this qualifying session for that to change. Jaden Harrison now on a blast down to the line. A little improvement in it there for Jaden Harrison. I am astounded that he found that much time there. Just under a tenth to Kurt Moss now in second place. Roger Robinson trying to find his footing now to get back on terms with the group at the front. Coming through sector 2, he has improved in both sectors, but is still a little bit down on the likes of Moss and Harrison. So let's see if he can put together a rapid final sector to challenge those 2 at the front. Right now, looking like Roger Robinson a little adrift of Moss and Harrison, but we saw Harrison find a bit of time in the third sector to improve by just about 2 tenths. So what is in it there for Roger Robinson now on his run to the line? Whereas the improvement, no, lost heaps of time in the final sector. So not much improvement being found except for Jaden, who moves himself up to second place. We are still waiting to see what the German Tim Stahl will do, currently on his way. I want to think this is an outlap at the moment, but it could be the start of his flying lap, as he just went through turn 2 into turn 3 now. And Brands Hatch, a track known for its sweeping corners, and the key to sweepers is to keep that minimum speed up all the way through the corner. Figure out the best apex, because the apex is not always going to be on initial turning. So gonna have to find that apex where you can maximize your exits and get back on the power best you can. These drivers proving that once again that you throw a new track at them and they will find pace. Stahl here now looking like he is on a better lap, but I could have been wrong and this may have been Stahl's outlap. I am not seeing his times pop up on the timing sheet at the moment, but as he is now making that run down to the line, It looks like he will be starting a flying lap. That was a flying lap, but he is starting a new one. So Tim Stahl a 35.3, but we know there's more pace out there for this driver. Maybe now just getting a little bit scared of that final sector where he seems to lose time hand over fist if he is not cutting, and when he cuts, he he tends to invalidate that lap. So let's see if he can put it together this time around. What's it gonna be through the first sector? Already off the pace by 0.4 of a second. It is an improvement, but not one that will challenge at the top of the timing sheets right now. The battle that we expected to see Tim Stahl in is not the one between Kimani Eastman and Joshua Brady where he currently is, but at the top of the order with the likes of Harrison, Moss and Robinson, where we have seen him ever so often. Through 2 sectors though, already down 0.5 to the leaders, so having to put together a gripping final sector to keep himself in contention with these drivers, and this is where he normally gets it wrong, and it looks a little bit more tidy than it has in the past for Stahl there through that corner. So on the run now to the line, well, through the final corner and then on the run to the line. Let's see, looks like improvement. Let's see how much improvement there as he is heading to cross the line just about now, and he moves up into 5th position at 33.2 as Oswin Wilson has moved himself up into 3rd position ahead of Roger Robinson. Tim Stahl still about 0.5 adrift from the 2 drivers in front, as I did mention, due over the course of his lap, but that is closer to where you expect to see the German driver, and again running a little wide there. Stahl just has not yet figured out the physics of these cars. Like we said, ladies and gentlemen, these cars have been updated and they are a little bit more, I don't want to say they're more challenging to drive, but the turn-ins have changed a little bit dramatically. So these drivers currently trying to figure it out, the likes of Stahl struggling to get on form with that car at the moment. But at the top of the sheets, we are looking at Jaden Harrison now on another flying lap. There should not be much time left in qualifying. I cannot see it on screen as we normally would, but we should be on the last set of flyers right about now based on the time I have. Yes, we are, as we now get the checkered flag. Moss has improved a 32.4, and we are down into the lower half of the 32s, but Jaden Harrison on this lap through sector 1 a 10.5 down on Moss. Still needs to find some time here, and maybe can find some time, but he will have to do so in the 2nd and 3rd sectors. Now rounding out the 2nd sector, what's it gonna be? Still down through 2 sectors, and I don't think Harrison is gonna find it, as Roger Robinson does on his final flyer to move himself up to the top of the timing sheets on a 32.4. Mr. Sandbag saves it till the very last moment to unseat Kurt Moss at the flag. Jaden Harrison not looking on pace to do the same at the moment. Through 2 sectors, he is down on Roger Robinson. Can he get a blistering exit from the final corner on the run to the line? Is there anything in it for Jaden Harrison to improve his time? No, it does not seem so. So he will start from P3 on the grid. Roger Robinson at the 25th. Oh, manages to find a time to put himself at the top of the timing sheets. Tim Stahl still only managed as much as P5, a good 0.5 adrift of the drivers ahead, and Kimani Eastman, Eric Ferreira and Joshua Brady will be having their own little battle. Alex Jarrett did not qualify in that session. He would have been right there at the top challenging these drivers, I am sure, but let's see what happens come race time for these drivers. We are still going to be having our rolling starts, and we have what looks like 10 drivers on the grid. I'm not sure if Jarrett is actually racing. So those 10 drivers will be, we have 2 races coming your way. The first race has been set up by this brilliant qualifying session. The second race will be a reverse grid of the finishing order. So stick with us for the next 2 races that are coming your way. But as we prepare for the start of the first race of the evening, we will take a moment and be back with you shortly.
You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had Ceramic here have been a part of this competition. They've been
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have about half a minute to go until the start of this one. Remember, once again, we have a rolling start. We will be led away by our safety car as we get a good look at the design of the, well, I would say new, but it is now been used for an entire series. So the safety car here, the Porsche with the logo on display as we're about to get the lights. Keep in mind, once again, ladies and gentlemen, it is a rolling start, so the safety car will lead us away on a formation lap as the lights go green, and at the end of that lap is when we will go racing. So we have some action to come your way following this safety car lap. Once again, thank you to our sponsors over there at Ceramic Care, their logo plastered all over this stream. And as we are heading out on the formation lap, we can take a look at the drivers and what we expect to come in the race that is about to unfold before our eyes. Roger Robinson sticking it on pole on the last lap of the session. Can he keep that pace throughout the entirety of this race? I do think it is kind of representative pace, but who's to say that he is gonna be able to keep that time going consistently? We know Moss just behind is a very consistent driver and one that will always put the pressure on you, and the two were not separated by much, just about half a tenth in it between the two of them. So Kurt Moss gonna be right there in the rear view mirrors of Roger Robinson throughout the duration of this one. And never count Jaden Harrison out. He will certainly be wanting to get into the mix with those drivers up ahead. Oswin Wilson was not too far off the pace, so he could also be a factor in the coming race. Oswin, Tim Stahl just behind. Really not looking like the Tim Stahl I expected here this evening. When I spoke about the powerhouses, it would have been all five of these drivers: Robinson, Moss, Harrison, Wilson, and Stahl. But Stahl looking a little bit adrift of the front four at the moment, so may not be in the fight for the win or for the podium here this evening, but could certainly come alive. This is racing. Never say never, never count anybody out, especially a driver the caliber of Tim Stahl. Eastman, Ferreira, and Brady, of course, will have their own battle brewing just behind. Eastman looks to be a little bit ahead of the duo behind him, so we will see if he is able to pull a gap to those drivers as the safety car has disappeared off into the distance. El Presidente putting his foot down a little bit aggressively there, maybe enjoying his Porsche a little bit too much. But our eyes now turn back to the grid as they are approaching the final corner. They should be holding a speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour here now through this section of the track. We will be waiting to see green light, well, red lights and then green. I think there is something wrong with the HED on my stream here this evening, but nonetheless, we will get the green lights in a moment and the drivers will go racing. I do believe we have started racing, and Roger Robinson getting away very cleanly there in the early stages. Jaden Harrison up to P2, Tim Stahl to P3, and Moss there losing out on the start, and already Moss moving back up into second place there, sneaking his way through the inside, and is gonna challenge Roger Robinson off the bat. But there has been a safety car called, I believe. There seems to have been an incident behind Roger Robinson, and a safety car has been called to regroup the pack so that we can hopefully get a cleaner getaway this time around, and the pack has returned to the correct order. And stick with us as we are sorting out. I believe the drivers did not get the flag, just like we did not, so they were not clear on when they were to go just now, and I think that's why we have bunched the pack back up, just so that we can have a better getaway. So I think El Presidente is gonna take on the responsibility of the race light, i.e. he will give us a servo countdown for when we go racing once again. But this will be good news for the likes of Moss, who seem to have lost out at the start there drastically to his rivals around him. So let's see what's happening as we are in the final sector once again. When we get back to the line, I am sure we will go racing once more, and we can pay attention to what happens this time around off the line. When we get the reference at the top of the screen, the servo will go countdown mode, and you will get a 3, 2, 1, and the drivers are so my apologies, we will not be getting that servo countdown. It is when the leader gets to the line, all gloves are off, and it is time to go racing. So we have just bunched the grid back up to get a cleaner getaway. I think there was some miscommunication there, and some of the drivers were caught unawares without the usual start procedures. But let's see what takes place this time around, as we are now crossing the line and it is time to go racing. We have gotten a call for green flag racing, and Roger Robinson gets the jump on everybody. Stahl there fighting his way past Jaden Harrison up into P3. So Tim Stahl already trying to make me eat my words, getting into the podium spots when I told him that, or when I told you that he would not be in contention for that. Oswin Wilson seems to have tumbled way down the order, with the likes of Alex Jarrett not making any moves at the start. But Jarrett showing brilliant pace in the practice session. I'm sure will be starting to pick his way through the field at any given moment. Kimani Eastman and Eric Ferreira having a fight here early. Eastman managing to stay ahead. Jaden Harrison falling away from the trio at the front just a smidge. Not sure what's happening there for Harrison, but I'm sure he will get it together very soon, as there's a driver very wide there and somebody makes contact with the wall. That is Eric Ferreira tumbling down the order along with Joshua Brady. A little bit of contact between those two, it seems, and those two find themselves now at the back of the pack, and the fight was between the two of them at the end of the day, so that fight will soldier on at some point, although Ferreira seems well adrift of the pack now. 15 seconds in it as Tim Stahl making his way up to P2, getting ahead of Kurt Moss. Stahl putting it together here in the race the way he couldn't in qualifying, and already the German looking very racy with the pack around him. Roger Robinson there with the fastest lap at the moment, but of course that's just lap one woes. So we will keep an eye on those times as we get deeper into the race. Moss will be kicking himself for leaving the door open there for Tim Stahl to take that position away from him, but he is right with the German, and I'm sure he will be looking to take advantage as Stahl running wide there rejoins ahead of Moss, but Moss is alongside and has the inside line. Can he hold on to make that move? It seems like he does, but Stahl still has a foot in it. The door is still open and he is still alongside, and Tim Stahl pushes the button. Push to pass is available to these rivals, ladies and gentlemen, and Tim Stahl using it there to great effect. You saw the difference in pace between himself and Moss coming out of that corner, having used that magic button to keep himself ahead of Kurt Moss. Jaden Harrison, meanwhile, has closed up to this fight, and it is a four-way fight right now for the lead, although Roger Robinson clearing off into the distance while the three behind him are fighting it out to see who can try and challenge the man that took pole. He is looking quite comfortable out there at the moment, whilst these drivers are trying to sort out rank to see who can attack. Will we see anybody pull the trigger down the start finish straight here to try and make something happen? No, everybody thinking better of it. It's not a very long start finish straight, so I don't think these drivers will be looking to use that push to pass in this part, in particularly sector 1. Most of the places for it to be used are in sectors 2 and 3, so let's keep an eye on how those are utilized. Roger Robinson set the fastest lap of the race once again, but Jaden Harrison now putting some pressure on Moss, saying, listen, get the hurry up on, get this guy, or I'm gonna have to take matters into my own hands at some point here. So we are about 9 minutes into this race so far, and already we are seeing some racing happening. Kimani Eastman and Oswin Wilson having a battle here. Oswin trying to get ahead of Eastman, and on the inside line Eastman will have to leave the space, but keeps a foot in and stays alongside Oswin Wilson, however, getting the move done by the time we get to the end of that section of the racetrack. And Eastman now will have to turn his eyes behind once again, because just behind him Alex Jarrett is also looking to make some progress here, as those drivers started well out of position. Jarrett and Wilson, Jarrett starting last and Wilson taking a tumble at the end, at the start of the race, sees him down the order. But Jarrett and Eastman now duking it out for that P6 position, and Mr. P6 Kimani Eastman in P6 once again. Can Alex Jarrett get ahead as Stahl, Moss and Harrison are now opening up the gaps? Moss has lost a second and change to Tim Stahl. Tim Stahl looks to be maybe closing back up to Roger Robinson up ahead, so we will keep an eye on that gap as we look at Alex Jarrett trying to challenge Kimani Eastman for P6. Jaden Harrison still looking very racy with Kurt Moss. Where will he try and make that move at the moment? Still sitting in P4, maybe thinking that his fight should not be with Kurt Moss at this time. They need to figure out how to fight Stahl up ahead, but Robinson may have made a mistake somewhere, and Stahl is now right on the rear wing of Roger Robinson. Imagine I counted this man out of the fight for the podium and the win, and currently he is 0.3 of a second adrift of our race leader. Once again, Tim Stahl making me eat my words very unceremoniously. And we will keep an eye on that battle, as Jaden Harrison still putting some heavy pressure on Kurt Moss at the moment, as the drivers are now heading on to the start finish race. The top 4 not separated by much. There is a battle brewing between the top 4. Roger Robinson certainly made a mistake there. Everybody behind was doing 133 lows and Roger was in the mid 134, so a mistake there cost him on the previous lap, but already starting to extend over Stahl up ahead. The gap was 0.3, it's now 0.6, so, and that's through the first 3 corners. Roger Robinson refinding his footing after the mistake that was made. Oswin Wilson has cleared the rest of the field, and Alex Jarrett, whilst we were watching this battle, has gotten ahead of Kimani Eastman, so Mr. P6 right now has to settle for P7, and Alex Jarrett and Oswin Wilson will have some work to do to try and close the gap to the rivals around him. At current, Stahl and Robinson, the only 2 of the front 4 that have used push to pass installments. Robinson and Stahl 2 apiece have been used. I'm not sure if Moss and Harrison, sorry, are saving those for later on in the race. We still have about 8 minutes of racing action to go, 10 minutes of racing action to go, my apologies, before we get to the flag, so lots of time for things to change. But Harrison seems to be pushing Kurt Moss around this track at the moment, just sticking in that slipstream Maybe the two trying to work together to take the fight to the guys at the front. Moss into the 32s, a 32-9 there. Harrison just behind, a 33-0. So not much separating these drivers at the moment, and maybe this is these two drivers working together, because everywhere I look, Jaden Harrison seems to have the pace, and that gap has not extended at all. Just like the gap up ahead, Stahl on Robinson has not changed. Tim Stahl has found some pace here in this race that I certainly did not see coming. I am not sure where he found this pace immediately. We saw glimpses of it in the practice session. Maybe he is also one that enjoys using the sandbag technique, because right now Tim Stahl looking very aggressive, challenging Roger Robinson up ahead. 3/10 of a second basically in it between these two drivers. Not much to separate them at the moment. Roger Robinson will be checking his mirrors, because that's the view from his cockpit at the moment. Not much separating these two drivers, just as the same can be said for Harrison and Moss behind. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we will be joined by El Presidente on commentary, as he is watching the battle brewing between the top four drivers at the moment. El Presidente, how are you feeling?
Joe, being a part on the commentary team. Definitely enjoying my seat here in this safety car, watching the battles up front with Roger Robinson and Tim Stahl, with Kurt and Jaden Harrison, and even a few battles behind previously between Kimani and Oswin and Alex. I was looking forward to that battle between Kimani, Eric, and Joshua at the start of the race, but sadly we had a few technical difficulties with the typical rolling start, so we did have to do it manually, unfortunately. But at the same time, the race has been relatively clean, very impressive. These new cars, we've noticed, do give us some really good racing, especially close side-by-side action. So it's showing with the talents of the drivers. We see Jaden in the slipstream for the last, let's say, 6 minutes of Mr. Massive himself, as well as Tim Stahl with the Kurt setting the fastest lap with a 1:32.8, but Tim Stahl breathing on the back of Mr. Robinson's car. What a showing, Mr. Dillon. How has it been for you? And I mean, a very key note, which actually is surprising to me, Chad. If you notice, Rohe and Tim have 2 push to passes left. Kurt and Jaden have all 5. So, I was even surprised to not say Jaden bump drafting Mr. Massive, but clearly pulling each other along to catch, and now they're going to use that more than enough energy, and I'm assuming fuel, to take to the two ahead of them and see if they can start pushing for the top step as the two, Rohe and Tim, use their second to last. Push the pass. Tim putting a nose, saying, "All right, yeah," as Mr. Dillon stated, this is the desperation zone, and pushes Mr. Robinson off track to re-enter slightly behind Mr. Harrison. I'm wondering if they're aware that they have pushed the pass. Again, these cars, as with the testing that we did last week, which was very fun, if I do say so myself. It's just so much fun that you just kind of forget about them, I guess. And the pace has been so clean and consistent, and maybe they're saying to themselves like, "Hey, let's challenge each other." I'm not sure what's happening, but hey, 2 minutes remaining, Mr. Dillon, and they have 5 push to passes left, with Tim just using his final. What can be the outcome? Yes, sir. Jaden making the move. Have you, as you've noted, Mr. Dillon, it is now sorry, not the danger zone, but the desperation zone. uh, No, very correct. The time has elapsed, and as Tim goes around, it will be this should be the white flag. We should be getting a checkered flag after this lap. So this is the final lap as Mr. Harrison tries and. Ooh. Does that put Rohit Robinson back in contention for a podium step, carrying more momentum? Will he be able to put a little pressure and catch back up to the 2? It is a 2-second gap, Mr. Dillon. I don't think so, but anything is anything. Anything can happen. as you said, this is the desperation zone. Let's look for more of those desperate dives, as Mr. Harrison has been very patient throughout the duration of this race. And, you know, again, third place is nice, but second is nicer. Team comes around.
Yo, tell her John if I cross the line, or I'm going to get DNF, you know. Stevie. So, race one concluded, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be heading into race two in a few moments' time. Stick with us, and we will be right back.
You've seen the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with about 30 seconds to go until we get the formation lap going once again, we can talk about how that first race unfolded. Tim Stahl once again proving that I do not have the measure of him. Tends to do that very nicely. You know, he did not look to have the measure of the car in practice. In the quali session, did not look like he could put the lap together, and then come main race, Stahl out of nowhere just had the pace to challenge the drivers at the front, and very unceremoniously removed Roger Robinson from his path to take the victory in that first race. Once again, the drivers are currently on a formation lap led by the safety car. El Presidente will take the drivers around the track to get the tires into the operating window and get these drivers ready to go racing from a rolling start. So we have just about 8 corners to go before it's time to go racing once again, and this time it is a reverse grid, so Wilson in the first race rather unfortunately did not get back to the start finish line, so therefore it did not classify as finished. and will start from last position. But Eric Ferreira, the driver that now starts on pole, having been the last classified finisher, with Joshua Brady for company alongside him, and those two certainly know how to have a battle. Kimani Eastman in P4 will be looking to take advantage of the drivers ahead of him early to, you know, maybe sit in lead and see what happens. But this could be Alex Jarrett's time to shine, as Alex Jarrett does have amazing pace and can maybe try and get the jump on these guys early and have a chance to get away before the likes of Robinson, Harrison, Moss and Stahl start to make their charge through the pack, which we expect them to do very, very quickly. So in just a few corners, it will be time to go racing once again, and we will see what the drivers have in store for us here in the reverse grid. So let's get ready in anticipation of the chaos that is about to unfold as these drivers try to make their way through the field, starting from well outside of position for the likes of Stahl, Moss, Harrison, Robinson. So safety car will now peel off and head back to the pits. The drivers will form up, and I do believe that it will be the same procedure as the first race, where when the leader gets to the line, it's time to go racing, and once the leader goes, everybody else is clear to follow. So Eric Ferreira now controls the pack and will dictate when we go racing. He has Joshua Brady for company alongside him, and let's see what Joshua Brady can do here in the second race of the evening. So we have gotten to the line, and it is time for these drivers to bolt. Ferreira gets away cleanly, Brady alongside. He may lose out to Kimani Eastman early here as he runs wide and loses out to both Eastman and Wilson. Alex Jarrett follows him through, and that's Joshua Brady tumbling all the way down to P9. Ferreira holds on but runs wide there, managing to keep in the lead, however, and Eastman maybe thought he saw a window of opportunity and does this time around, as Ferreira runs wide once again, and by the time he rejoins, he will do so in P2. That is Oswin Wilson, my apologies, not Kimani Eastman, who takes the lead of this race. Tim Stahl, how did he get there, is already in P2 in this particular event. My God, what a start from Tim Stahl. I missed that entire dispatching of the rest of the field to find himself in P2. Harrison has not made much progress from where he started. Moss up a position or two, but Tim Stahl, I can't even find the words to describe that start from Stahl. My goodness, getting ahead of even Alex Jarrett in no time at all. So right now, Wilson, Stahl and Jarrett are podium positions. Stahl looking to take the fight to the leaders once again, and this is the last thing his rivals behind wanted to see, because should Tim Stahl be able to get himself into some clean air here early, as Alex Jarrett is putting some pressure on him though, but if Tim Stahl was able to get clear of the field, there would be no catching him when we get to the latter stages of the race, as that is Roger Robinson tumbling down the order there. May have had an incident, but right now we are looking at the front three, and Oswin Wilson doing everything in his power to stay clear of Stahl and Jarrett behind. Jarrett looking very, very racy here in the second race of the evening right now, sitting in the slipstream of Tim Stahl, waiting to go racing. Moss has managed to make his way up to P4, Harrison to P5, so maybe they will too be joining the fight for the lead of this race in a few moments time. But Jarrett right now, the driver applying the pressure to the German driver who won in the first race. Jarrett looking to have the pace advantage at the moment, and is being strategic with his push to passes. One has been used to Tim's two, so let's see how these two drivers play their utilization of that push to pass for the duration of this race. Moss and Harrison finally have seemed to figure out that button and have been using them already. Moss has used one, Harrison has used two. But Joshua Brady now sits in P6 ahead of Ferreira, Eastman, Wilson and Robinson. Not sure what unfolded there with Robinson. We need the benefit of instant replay in these streams to see what that action looks like up and down the order. But Tim Stahl now starting to close that gap to Oswin Wilson. Alex Jarrett not letting him go very easily, and right now those two drivers need to be thinking about a strategy to work together. Moss there behind trying to catch that pack. Harrison a little bit further drift, not yet in contention, but Alex Jarrett still looking very racy here with Tim Stahl, who has finally gotten the gap to under a second to Oswin Wilson up ahead. And I am still baffled by that start from Tim Stahl to find himself up into P2 on the opening lap of that race when he started from 9th position. For context, that is where Roger Robinson is right now, and I'm not sure how he managed to pull that off. But finding himself in a different battle this time around, Alex Jarrett right there waiting for his opportunity with the German driver not being able to pull away. And every time Tim Stahl has to check his mirrors, that gives Oswin Wilson a chance to pull out just a little bit of a gap. Moss 1.8 seconds behind, not yet in contention for the fight for the podium, but we will keep an eye on his progress as we watch this battle that is unfolding between Tim Stahl and Alex Jarrett. Alex Jarrett right now looking to take that fight to Tim Stahl up ahead. Moss doing some blistering laps there already in the 32s just off the bat, and Alex Jarrett right now is looking for a way past Tim Stahl right now, trying to get around the outside, but Stahl is still alongside and holds on to that position at the moment. These drivers using all of the track and then some, trying to keep the advantage, as we see Stahl there running very wide on the exit of turn 3, trying to stay ahead of Alex Jarrett, who is right in his slipstream, still looking to keep that fight alive. And once again, Stahl having to check his mirrors. Oswin Wilson gets the grace of a 1 second gap, just like that. And right now, this fight is looking tasty because Kurt Moss is closing in, and it's going to be a 4-way fight soon enough, with Moss there in the background trying to get into the mix with the drivers ahead. Jaden Harrison not yet closing up at a rate of knots, but he is not that far behind should anything unfold up ahead. Jaden Harrison is close enough to try and pick up the scraps of that battle right now. The closest battle is the battle for P2, Stahl and Jarrett not giving each other any wiggle room, and as this is happening, Stahl is closing that gap to Oswin Wilson ahead. I'm not sure these drivers will be able to avoid a fight for very much longer, and there is Kurt Moss in the background looking for that fight to start unfolding so that he can get himself into the mix. This is going to be a thrilling battle in the second half of this race, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking for it to start unfolding as Stahl has now closed that gap down to Oswin Wilson, and it will now be a 3, soon to be 4-way fight. Moss is now under a second away from Alex Jarrett, and it will now be looking like a 4-way fight for the top spot of the podium. And this is what we have come to expect from the second race of the evening, as it is always a race that gives us some thrilling battles with drivers starting out of position. This time around, there were drivers with pace that were out of position, the likes of Alex Jarrett and the likes of Oswin Wilson, who ended a little bit further down the order, but still had decent pace. They are now showing that that pace is there, as Wilson still holds on to that lead ahead of Stahl, Jarrett just behind, and Moss has joined the fray. Here comes Kurt Moss knocking on the door of the podium, trying to take the fight to Alex Jarrett. Are these two drivers going to come to blows before the start of the battle for the lead of the race? Right now, Moss has fallen away just a tad from Alex Jarrett, but Alex Jarrett will have to keep an eye on that rear view mirror as much as he is still looking ahead to keep the fight with the German alive. Right now, it is looking like Oswin Wilson has the measure, has maintained about a 6 cents gap, but Stahl is right there waiting to pick up the pieces, as is Alex Jarrett just behind, and Kurt Moss is going to get into the mix as Moss there using a push to pass, trying to close back the gap to that group, and Jaden Harrison in the background, 1.3 seconds a gap. This is going to be a thrilling fight between these 5 drivers. Roger Robinson has been making some quiet progress whilst we have been watching these battles unfold, currently right in the slipstream of Joshua Brady, and I'm sure will be trying to make that move as quickly as possible. Still some 11 seconds adrift of the fight for the lead of the race, as he is almost pushing Brady through that section of the racetrack and going offline there, trying to find a way past Joshua Brady, who has shown us before his affinity to a very strong defense. Can he manage to hold off Roger Robinson for much longer? Roger Robinson, I think, has a 2-second pace advantage over Joshua Brady, so right now the odds should be in favor of Roger Robinson, but where can he get it done? This is not a very wide track, and there are no extremely long straights unless you want to count that straight after turn number 5. So let's see where Roger Robinson can do it, and around the outside on the exit of turn 1. That is quite the place to get that move done for Roger Robinson. A brilliant move there to get himself up into P6, and he now has 12 seconds to the cars in front. Let's see if he can make any progress, as those drivers are gonna start battling very, very soon. Alex Jarrett has fallen away from the lead cars at the moment. Moss still sitting very nicely in that slipstream, looking to make a move, and the two are side by side here, and this is going to be Moss trying to get up onto the podium paying positions as Jaden Harrison also goes through. Alex Jarrett seems to have gotten it a little bit wrong there, and that allowed the likes of Harrison and Moss to get through, but just that small battle, and Moss is now 2 seconds adrift of the leaders. That leaves Tim Stahl a little bit of breathing room to stop checking those mirrors and maybe take that fight to Oswin Wilson at long last. You know, for a majority of this race, he has had to look in those mirrors because Alex Jarrett was right there waiting for an opportunity to get into the mix. But right now, Tim Stahl, a man without fear, because there is nobody for the next 2 seconds and change behind to challenge. And so he can take that fight to Oswin Wilson to try and take back the top spot of this, the second race of the evening. And what a day it would be for a man that I said did not look to have the measure of the car or the pace to challenge the front four to win not one but both races here this evening, proving that I'm just up here blowing smoke because clearly I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the racing that is taking place here this evening. But Stahl having a look there on Oswin Wilson, my apologies, but just not quite close enough. Where is he going to be able to try and get that move done? I am still seeing Moss and Harrison in the background, but the gap's still just about 2 seconds. Right now, the eyes are fixed on the battle for the lead as Tim Stahl is all over the back of Oswin Wilson. We have 8 minutes to go in this particular race, and it is looking to be a very hot 8 minutes of racing action with the likes of Stahl, Moss, Harrison, and Wilson in the mix at the moment for the win and the podium, as Tim Stahl there was thinking about having a look at Oswin Wilson, stepped out of the slipstream, had a look at the outside, deciding better of it. Oswin Wilson right now covering off that inside line very aggressively, trying to make sure that Stahl is not able to get ahead. And Stahl here thinking he may have seen an opening, but Oswin Wilson managing to stay ahead. And now that these two are actually coming to blows, we are seeing the likes of Moss and Harrison close up behind. Oswin Wilson not able to maintain the pace of the drivers ahead, but the battle is still on, and now we are playing the likes of Moss and Harrison back into contention for the fight for the victory. Tim Stahl not sitting as comfortably anymore, as he will have to start checking those rearview mirrors once again very soon. Moss and Harrison in the background, and we have a fight on our hands, ladies and gentlemen, for the next roughly 6 minutes and change plus an additional lap. There will be a fight for the victory of this race. I'm not sure what's going on with Moss and Harrison in this race. In the previous race, we saw them close a gap and maintain a gap to the drivers ahead very, very easily. But right now, it's fluctuating a little bit more drastically, as Moss has fallen just outside of a second once again. But Tim Stahl has not left that rear wing of Oswin Wilson for the entirety of this race. And Oswin Wilson, to his credit, has been showing brilliant pace. And there's a drive-through for Eric Ferreira, having gotten too many track cut warnings to further down the order, as I think he is locked in a battle with Kimani Eastman at the moment. But that battle will be decided by a penalty before Eastman even makes that move, with Joshua Brady just up ahead also involved in the fight these two are having. But right now, Tim Stahl is trying to figure out how to get the better of Oswin Wilson, as he is right there in the slipstream, using a push to pass, having a look, maybe giving Oswin something to think about in that turn-in. And right now, Tim Stahl looking a very composed driver, trying to figure out how to move his opponent offline to get the better of him in one of these sections. But to his credit, Oswin Wilson has been driving a very brilliant race, managing to keep that car well under control whilst doing competitive lap times and keeping the German at bay, parking it where he needs to park it, when he needs to park it, in order to maintain that advantage. But I think Tim Stahl here now getting a little bit unorthodox, using a push to pass out of the final corner. Oswin Wilson will defend the inside line, but can Tim get that move done before we get into the braking zone of turn one? He can, but Wilson with the inside line will try to fight it back. However, Stahl is ahead and covers off the inside line for good measure by the time we get to turn two, and almost pushing Tim Stahl through that corner is Oswin Wilson, not willing to give up that victory that easily. But he may have to start looking in those rearview mirrors, as Kurt Moss is right there waiting for his opportunity, and Moss having a look up the inside. Tim Stahl using that push to pass at the right moment, getting a little bit unorthodox, going around the outside at turn one. Brilliant move from the German to once again take the lead of the race, and proving, ladies and gentlemen, that I've been sitting here talking nonsense for the last hour and change. My goodness. So as we are down into the final few minutes before we get the checkered flag, Tim Stahl sits in the lead. Oswin Wilson trying to keep a charging Kurt Moss at bay, and Jaden Harrison just behind, looking to pick up the scraps of anything that goes awry. Wilson running a little bit wide there, could have opened the door for those two drivers. And wouldn't it be something if, despite starting from last, we had the exact same podium that we did in the first race once again? Moss now looking to try and make a move on Oswin Wilson, but Harrison behind also looking very racy. And I'm not sure if Jaden will be willing to play the same game that he did last time, trying to push Kurt Moss along, waiting for Moss to try and make the move on Oswin Wilson and then try and follow him through, because at this stage of the game we are down into the desperation zone, and there is only one spot on the podium between these two drivers at the moment. Podium sounds better than P4 any day of the week. And yeah, no, and Jaden Harrison putting the pressure on Moss behind as well. So it's gonna come down to who is gonna make the move first. Jaden Harrison right now in that slipstream, thinking about it. 2 tenths the gap between these drivers, and Harrison may have thought better of it there, waiting for him. I'm not sure if this is a waiting game or if the straight just isn't long enough for these drivers to make the move. And as time elapses, we will be starting the final lap of the race when Tim Stahl gets to the line. So this is the most desperate time of the desperation zone, as these drivers all have one lap to solidify their positions. This has been, despite not having many brilliant overtakes, this has still been a thrilling race, just watching these drivers trying to figure out how to make these moves happen. Absolutely. Well, Mr. Moss there looking but not able to make it happen. And we have just about 2 corners to go. Oswin Wilson has driven a very brilliant race to keep Tim Stahl at bay for as long as he could, and now doing the same to Moss and Harrison behind. But the man of the hour, the man of the day, the man that makes me eat my words on a regular basis, Mr. Tim Stahl, will come across the line. Back-to-back victories, top spot in both races. Oswin will hold on. Kurt Moss will take the final step of the podium. Jaden Harrison to come across the line in P4. Alex Jarrett will finish in P5. And damage limitation for Roger Robinson here coming across the line in P6, having had a torrid time of this event in both races. Joshua Brady will come across the line to take P7 once again, and Kimani Eastman a little bit further down the road, but will come across the line to take P8 in that Hyundai Sonata. And here comes Eric Ferreira, having taken a drive-through penalty, will come across the line in P9, and Ajani Wilson a little bit further down the road will be the final driver to cross the line. Hopefully he does cross the line this time, as he failed to do so at the end of the previous race. But it has been the Tim Stahl tour here in today's race, managing to take the top spot in both races. We will be talking to a few of the drivers in a little bit, as the drivers are currently heading back to the pits to get their cars parked up in Parc Ferme. So we will observe as they are heading around the track. The top four, rightfully so, not separated by much as they are pulling into the pits. And it has been quite an eventful race for Tim Stahl. Kurt Moss doing the best he could in both races, trying to unseat Stahl, and in the second race Wilson, but not managing to get it done. Jaden Harrison, boy, at this point he must be so familiar with the rear wing of Kurt's Corolla that he could tell you where every speck of dust is. And you know, our sponsors over at Ceramic Care would have tried to make sure that it was dustless, but Jaden should know what compound Ceramic Care is made out of at this stage of the game, having observed that rear wing for as long as he did. So we will prepare for some interviews with our top three drivers, as we are gonna see. I think we should be talking to Jaden Harrison as the first driver. So let me see if I can get hold of him in a few moments. Just bear with me as I try to get hold of the drivers. So Jaden Harrison, are you there? Jay? Jaden Harrison, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations taking a podium in the first race, and you were right there waiting in the second race. Is it that Brands Hatch is just a difficult track to pass at, or what's the story?
No, well, in race one, I had more pace than Kurt, but I didn't really want to pass him. We're kind of just using each other to pull each other forward to catch, but I really forgot about push the pass, and if I remembered about it, I think I could have passed him and moved up and fight for first. And the second, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It did look like you had the pace advantage, but I was sitting here wondering, you know, maybe you were saving them for that battle with the lead, but not quite panning out that way. And the second race, it looked like once again you were right there. You know, the battle kind of fluctuated between yourself and Kurt and Oswin up ahead. It looked like any two of you could have finished on the podium. How did that pan out?
Yeah, well, on the start, I was running hard tires. I'm a lot better with the hards, and at the start I just got passed and pushed wide, and I had a lot of damage from that. So, like I was not very slow, but I just kept consistent, tried to catch, and at that point I just had way too much damage to even make a pass. I couldn't even get near to even send a move, but it was very good, very close racing, good pack racing. So we go for that.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations again, Jaden, and it was good talking to you.
Yeah.
So next up, we should be talking to Oswin Wilson, managing to take P2 there in the second race of the evening. Oswin, can you hear me? Oswin, I see that you're talking, but I cannot hear you.
You guys can hear me now?
Yes, much better. Well, yeah, congratulations. They're taking P2 in the second race. It looked like you had the pace there for a while, managing to hold off Tim Stahl for a little bit, and then managing to hold Moss at bay in the final few laps. How was that race for you?
Yeah, the race was excellent. I know I had to be aggressive at the start in order to get out in front because the first race I was a bit timid and lost a lot of position. So this race I went out and be aggressive at the start, got out to the lead, and I was anticipating when Tim gonna use his push to pass, but I didn't expect him to use it on the front straight. So he caught me off guard, and I didn't have no comeback. So he got one on me.
Yeah, no, that was an unorthodox place. I said as much when I watched him do it, and I was like, that look rough. But
Yeah.
still a good race overall. Managing to hold on to that P2 with Kurt Moss behind you, no mean feat. But congratulations there, Azun.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. And next up, we will be taking Mr. Massive, third place in the second race, second place in the first race. Podiums all around today, Kurt. How are you feeling?
Well, it was fun. I think whatever update they did between yesterday and today kind of helped me because I didn't like the feel of the car before. So I think it worked out in my favor, whatever changes they made. So yeah, it wasn't a bad race at all.
Yeah, the first race there, I was looking at the battle for the lead with Tim, and I was thinking any moment now, Kurt Moss is going to start deploying those push to passes. What happened there?
Push the pass, no worky. I don't know what happened. The button unbinded. I had to exit and rebind it for the second race. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, that's unfortunate because it looked like you did have the pace to challenge Tim in the first race, and then Oswin kind of held you at bay in the second race. Is it just difficult to overtake here, or what was the story?
It's hard to overtake, but in the second race, I used up a couple of push to pass early in the race, so I really had nothing left at the end. And without that push to pass, it's gonna be almost difficult to get a good pass.
Fair game, fair game. But still, taking a couple of podiums away from the race, not a bad showing. I know you're a man that like the top step a lot better than the second step, but hey, podiums are podiums. So congratulations, Kurt.
Yeah, man, respect, man. It's always good to win, but it's even better when you have good, clean racing. So I enjoyed it to the max.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations again, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, man, bless.
Good. So finally, I think we should be talking to Mr. Tim Stahl, who took the victory in both races. Tim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna need you to stop making me look like an idiot, because in practice and in qualifying, I was looking at what was happening, and I was like, Tim just doesn't seem to have it today. And then come main race, here we are. Man takes victory in both races, and I just look like I'm dumb. So, talk me through it. What was going on in the practice session? Was it just trying to dial it in? What was happening?
Yeah, I was honestly practice session. I didn't have that much time because I was practicing for Chase for Pace most of the week. The physics update is new, and I was just trying to really experiment and find time. And I wanted to do the same in quali because I did feel like there was more in it, but I ended up, due to just over pushing and experimenting too much, I ended up not getting a clean lap in those 15 minutes. Which is why I started from P5. But yeah, I think after that, in the race the pace was okay. And yeah, I just tried to stay out of trouble, controlled aggression, and managed to fight my way up to the top.
Oh, no, we're gonna have to talk about that move on Oswin for the lead, because when you came out of that final corner and used that push to pass, I was like, that don't seem like where that's supposed to be used, but it worked. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, I saw him clip the curb. You should clip the inside curb just a bit to force the rotation and then catch it on throttle. And he got the inside curb just a bit too much, got the car unsettled and got a bad exit. And I was like, okay, this is my chance to strike. That's why I left that one push to pass. Because originally my strategy was to because I knew I had more pace, to just catch up with him and scare him into using push to pass again and again. So he didn't have any at the end, which sort of worked. And then I had this one desperation one. And when I saw him get a bad exit, I was just, yep, this is the one. And yeah, just went around the outside and it worked.
Fair enough. And I heard you mention Chase Pace earlier, so we will be seeing you in the Porsche Cup starting tomorrow. How are you feeling heading into that?
I'll have to be honest with you, mixed feelings regarding Porsche Cup. I'm new to ACC. I've had like 1 or 2 days to practice. It's not that bad, but I do need to still get used to the handling model of ACC. It's different to AC and iRacing with the braking, with how the car feels with the force feedback, and I'm still also working on dialing that all in. I hope tomorrow won't be too bad, but I can definitely see myself not being up to pace tomorrow.
Preaching to the choir on the ACC handling physics, but yeah, no, certainly it is unique in the style, and it definitely does not have the same response feeling to AC and iRacing. However, if your pace is anything to go by, a full 24 hours to dial it in is heaps of time for you. So, congratulations again, and we look forward to seeing how the Porsche Cup goes for you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so that concludes our interviews with the drivers, and it's been a good, fun evening of racing. So, once again, thank you to our streaming partners over at SportsMax. And if you have joined us on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. We do appreciate the views. Porsche Cup coming at you tomorrow on ACC, as mentioned in that interview with Tim Stahl. So you can join us right back here if you do enjoy the racing action presented, to see more of it coming your way starting tomorrow in the next phase of the Chase Pace Series Porsche Cup on Assetto Corsa Competizione. The first track is Watkins Glen in the US of A, so that should be one to watch. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
We are coming up to as there is a he tried the switcheroo.
You came and failed the test, you met the best, expected chess, but got monopoly. I came and bought you out, I knocked you out, I crouched you out with no apologies. I am the hope, the heart, the faith, the spark, the one who will fulfill the prophecy. I just been counting, never lounging, climbing up mountains, bouncing back. Step in the ring, about you step back. They'll learn hot when I get on the track. I like it louder the most, watching all these sheep just bow down to the goat. If I can't decide, I'ma probably get both. We can celebrate, but right now I'm a toast, resurrected.
Here is Eastman going side by side with Jaden Harrison. Jaden Harrison took him on the inside, but Eastman says no and closes the door. But here he is now about to lose 2 positions heading into the penultimate corner. Now coming through the final corner, Kian Moss get past Eastman as well.